This episode is brought to you by Endless Comics, Games, and Cards. Whether you are a dedicated Wednesday warrior or looking for the latest drop of TCG or sports cards, Endless Comics, Games, and Cards has you covered. While Endless is known for their large collection of both single-issue comics and library of graphic novels, not to mention their monthly comic book club, they also stay fully stocked with singles and sealed product for Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and many others. What's the best part? You can set up a pull list online at endlesscgc.com and they'll send your books to you. So head on over to endlesscgc.com or check them out on social media at endlesscgc.
Hey, this is Frank Barbiere, the writer of The Author Immortal, and you're listening to the Oblivion Bar podcast.
Welcome to the Oblivion Bar podcast with your host, Chris Hector and Aaron Knowles.
Joining me today is the creative team behind the literary fantasy image comic series, The Author Immortal, which tells the tale of Hector Ramirez, a failed writer who gets the opportunity of a lifetime to help reboot the fantasy book series that defined his childhood. But when he discovers the original author has mysteriously vanished into a fictional world, Hector is pulled into a realm where stories are alive and some are willing to kill to stay in control. It is my pleasure to welcome writer Frank Barbiere and artist Morgan Beem onto the Oblivion Bar podcast.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure. And again, it's funny hearing you talk about our book because I still can't believe it's out because we've been working on it for a while. I know, Morgan, I saw you nodding as we were like,
issues as of tomorrow. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, we're recording this on November 11th, which the second issue will be out on November 12th. So we're getting and that actually brings up a good question. Morgan, something happened to you right before the recording that I do want to talk about, but I want to ask you guys before we even get into that, a preamble before the preamble. Do you want to get into any particular spoilers during this conversation? You know, creators sometimes differ depending on the conversation, and being that this is the second issue, you would hope that people that are checking out this have already read that first issue, but I wanted to leave it up to you and see what you thought.
I am not coy about anything. If anything, I think there is stuff in issue 1 that if we talk about, and if you've not read issue 1, will hopefully make you want to read issue 1. So I don't mind at all. I don't know, Morgan, if you have a strong...
we're going to assume you've at least read issue 1, I think. Maybe spoilers for that, but...
Sure.
Optimistically.
Well, Morgan, let's get back to that initial question I was going to ask you, because right before the recording, you had some... you said it was a student who popped into your room there.
A studio mate who popped in to grab their bike out of my conference room, which is also... So I work in a studio. It's me and 4 other comic creators and 1 editor. Writer. And so, I'm currently recording in our quote unquote conference room, which is also the storage room and library and 3D printing room. So most of the time it's pretty vacant, but sometimes people need to pop in, which is what happened before.
Sure. Yeah. Are you at liberty? Are you comfortable to say who those studio mates are? I'm just curious, like, as the comic nerd in me wants to know where, like, what magic is happening in that room at all times.
Yeah, for sure. So, it's me, Jorge Corona, Rye Hickman, David Stoll, Jeremy Lawson, and then our resident manga editor / writer, Lauren Scanlon.
Wow. That is awesome. What a room.
I didn't realize Lauren was there too. Yeah, I thought it was just you coming.
Yeah, she actually moved in, I think, right after Comic-Con. So.
Wow, that's awesome. Where are you based out of, Morgan?
I'm out of Denver, Colorado.
Denver, okay. And then Frank, you're out of New Jersey. Did I get that correctly?
Yeah, I'm from New Jersey, but I'm in Austin, Texas now. So.
Okay. All right. So, wow, we're all over. I'm in Indianapolis. We're all over the place right now, which is great.
Going global right now.
That's right. That's
U.S. global.
Well, I'd love to start off the actual conversation about the Author Immortal by going to a quote, Frank, that you had. I was listening to a conversation, and I'm actually spacing because you've been on the literal gauntlet of interviews, it seems like, since this first issue released.
It's funny because Christian Ward, who is a dear friend of mine, like, I was talking to him just about press. He's like, have you done a podcast? I was like, buddy, let me tell you, they're all going to hit at the same time.
Frank's been hustling his face off to get the word out about this book for sure.
And respectfully, though, everyone is so booked up because, again, I think you all are doing great jobs in the podcast space and everyone wants to be on them, that there were so few that I guess Jim Fiscardi and Rosenberg got his out before release. But honestly, like, I'm glad to get them out now because like there's just so much like issue 1 like bloat, which you wanted to do well, but I feel like we could have a more interesting conversation with 2 issues being out, et cetera, et cetera. But
yeah, totally. I mean, it's one of those things that I feel like right around the time that first issue came out, I saw not only people excited about that first issue, but also, again, as we just spoke about, you hitting that gauntlet. And you kind of have to do that in today's comic world, the marketing and all that. There are some people out there that don't have to market their work, and they're like one of the 0.1%ers in any medium, not just comics. But I always respect those creators that go out there and hustle their way into, and I know you kind of enjoy, like some people enjoy that conversation, but at the same time, it is still like, it's hard to put your personality in the front of your face for an hour and talk about this thing that you love. That's very personal and intimate to you,
Morgan knows every time I'm like, this time I'm going to sound smart. And then immediately I tell stories about myself being an idiot. And I'm like, well, I guess this is who I am. And it's all right. My book is not like me, but I can at least laugh at myself and have fun with it instead of being
You always
like,
sound smart, Frank. Just smart and relatable, which is important.
Let me get my monocle on and I can start the interview proper. But no, I like doing podcasts too, because I feel like text interviews are very hard because one, like, especially if the like interviewer isn't like so familiar or it's a new book, like questions are hard to come up with, like other than pretty general questions, not putting them on blast, but like truly, like you don't know the content necessarily. And I don't know, I enjoy just having conversations much more because it can flow and there's a lot of interesting things like Morgan's studio coming up. That was such a nice organic
it's a good time.
interest.
Yeah, totally. Well, let me get back to that quote that I was mentioning earlier. You said, and again, I'm spacing the actual show, but I'm sure you've said some version of this in other shows, where the Author Immortal is a literary fantasy about what happens when you outgrow a story you love, but it won't let you go. So I would love to hear you sort of talk about, noodle on this idea of fantasy worlds being corrupt, right? And how when our fantasy world becomes sort of tainted, I guess would be the best way to say this, it can sort of seep into your real world, and it can sometimes stunt that maybe affection for a particular work or even stunt that creativity. So I'd love to hear you just sort of talk more about that. And I want to hear this from both of you, but I guess I'll start with you, Frank. Do you feel that actually in real life, or is that just something that you sort of possessed and put into Hector in the story?
Oh, no, 200%. And at this point, we don't have to be coy with it, because one thing I will say is that the solicit for the book was really dealing with like kind of surface plot. It was very hard to solicit because there's this huge undercurrent about the book being about death of the author. The idea that, hey, like there are famous people we have grown up loving who've created worlds we love that have outed themselves as very bad people, monstrous in many cases, been canceled, and it has affected so much of literature. I mean, the big one obviously is J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. That really, I think that was just such a generational novel. And I'm 41 and I just missed Harry Potter. Like, it was obviously a phenom, but I didn't like read the books. I saw the movies, but so many people my age still though were very, very into it. And like, I feel like that is just such a fascination point for me, that we have this thing that was such a huge part of everyone's life. And if people do not know, the writer of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, is a awful anti-trans activist who is like moving actual legislation that is actively hurting people, and just terrible person, should not be supported in any way, in my opinion. But I think most people feel that way when they know what's going on. But
just literally using her like lumps of money to do this thing. It's horrific.
It is like, and it's a little unprecedented, because there's always been this idea of death of the author where like, oh, separate the artist from the work. But we have a living person who is actively doing wrong with the money from not an insubstantial IP. Like there are it was the last, like I talked to my partner a lot about this, but like the last generational IP, I feel like, before the internet really started segmenting off. Like I guess Game of Thrones was little, but Harry Potter is a huge part of so many people's lives. And the thing that I say, and Morgan, I'll let you get on this too, because this is something that we talked about a lot to bring the book to life. I had wanted to do like a metafiction book. Like one of my favorite books of all time is The Unwritten. And even Five Ghosts, like my first book, had some elements of it, but I didn't go like full hog because like one, I was still a baby writer and I was kind of like shy, like, oh, I don't want to do straight literary fantasy. Like this is by all means kind of a superhero book with that veneer. But when it got time to start thinking around like 2020, like what I really want to do as my next comic, I was like, I want to just like really go for it. I feel I've been writing all my adult life. This is what really interests me, but I didn't have the total way in yet. And I can't remember what it was, but part of it was seeing Morgan's art when we first started talking. But I feel like right before I emailed Morgan, I'd seen something that was like, oh, what if the villain is like kind of a modern stand-in for J.K. Rowling? Like, what if they are a very prominent author who's created a hugely big IP, but something has gone wrong and they become cursed and things have fallen out? And that really solidified so much of what the book is actually about for me, because that's what's interesting to me. And I also find it fascinating that as much as many of us know this, like there aren't a lot of works that are directly engaging with it. And The Author Immortal is not an answer. Like, I'm not going to tell you, hey, go burn your books by X author because we think they're bad now. But it's a question that drives, I think, a lot of creators right now. Like, how do we work with this? How do we create something productive? What does it mean? Like, in so many of the smaller conflicts in the book, I'm so proud of we came up with. I mean, I'll give one more thought, and Morgan, I'm going to pass it to you. But the full team on the book is obviously myself, Morgan doing beautiful art. We have Hassan Atsmain El doing beautiful lettering, just elevating everything. Sasha Ehead doing design and just great logo, great work. And a editor named Arden Ripley who does intense story editing with me. They go over every script and we really work through stuff, and they bring some perspective to the work, and it just helps so much. And I think helps us get in the pocket of where we want to be, as a big part of the book is identity. And I mean, we want people to realize like, hey, like you can kind of free yourself from the burdens of like these things you loved. You can still take what you need from them, et cetera, and move on. But it was a really, again, it was a big missing piece for me, how to fill in. Like, I knew we wanted to have this metafictional mystery, this writer who kind of invented a pre-Tolkien IP and like potentially using it to keep his daughter alive and a portal fantasy to a world. But filling in the kind of death of the author stuff really made it so much more important to me, and I think made it a much better story, like made it a lot more relevant. And I will laugh that, like, yes, we have a character who is representative of many authors who a lot of people peg just for Rowling, and it made me laugh because someone's like, that's not subtle. I'm like, well, yeah, it's not supposed to be. Like, if a famous white lady,
and in fact, we made it more subtle than the first draft. I want to let everybody know. The first draft, Frank was like going to go all punk rock. He's like, I'm just going to come for her, and we had to have an attorney friend to be like, don't do that.
I was like, what? I'm like, she's famous. What if it just is her? And yeah, my attorney was like, yeah, maybe not, bro. Like,
we've heard she's very litigious.
But no, but like as I said, like honestly though, I feel like if you feel like any like white lady who's British who doesn't like trans people is J.K. Rowling, that's more of a J.K. Rowling problem than an art problem, in my opinion.
Totally.
But anyway,
well, and also to be fair, like, yeah, we did very blatantly. It's not subtle. You know, she was our satirical approach to J.K. Rowling. But you know, as we talked about the plot further, even though that was kind of the prototype, she's a stand-in for many authors that we've all loved, you know, over time, that, you know, their works meant so much to you, and then you found out that the person sucked. I mean, very recently was Neil Gaiman and the controversy surrounding that. And I'm somebody who was a huge Gaiman fan, was very let down. Or like my big high school letdown, since I read the Harry Potter books growing up, but I wasn't a huge fan. But I was a huge fan in high school, and I felt very seen and understood by the Ender's Game books. You know, that one was really formative to me, especially as like a young sort of bi baby, and then realizing that Orson Scott-Card was a monster and also used, you know, his power and money and things for some really terrible things. You know, it's just something that is not new. Unfortunately, it comes up again and again, and unfortunately, because people are people, it is also going to continue happening in the future. You know, and so I think you know, Frank hit a lot of that on the head. Was just about how you separate these stories that were so impactful and possibly formative for you and have impacted your life with the reality you know, of a human being and you as a human being, and also people you love, right? I think the book is also a lot about, sort of, at least from our character's perspective, learning to choose the people you love in your life kind of over the fiction or stories that you thought you would have to cling to forever. Which I think is also sort of a big thing happening to people as they come up. Like I have a trans non-binary friend, and Harry Potter was like there forever. They always talked about like, what house are you in? And it was like a very identity forming thing. And now they're like, I don't know, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And so I think, it's just about learning to, like, as Frank said, like kind of take what you need from that, without guilt, and letting know that the stories, but also choosing either yourself or the people you love in your life over sort of terrible people. As Frank said, like the book is not seeking to really answer any of these questions, but it's just trying to start a general discussion that I think people have been interested in having for a while.
Yeah, and I will just add on that, it's been so fun to find like the layers of it as we continue to, because there's obviously a huge focus with us. Our main character, Hector, and our other main character, Al, is his kid who is non-binary, and Hector is hired by basically this awful writer who has come out and basically said anti-trans things in the world of the book, and Al has to confront their dad and be like, yo, you're going to work with that person? Like, have you considered how I feel? And these are real discussions happening. People have to constantly make compromises of like, I know this sucks, but I need the money, or like the clout is here. And as I said, it's not an answer, but like to simply expose that conflict hopefully is like relatable to some people. As we know, like this has so many ripples, and just the idea that the last thing I constantly bring up because I find it so funny is like Hector has named his child after a fictional character from a book, which is me just thinking of all the poor kids named like Hermione, or even named Game of Thrones characters. Like I just
Khaleesi.
Khaleesi. I just find that so. I don't mean funny in like a mean way, but it's like you raise your kid and you name them after this fictional character. And I know you hope, like, I hope my kid Luke Skywalker is going to love Star Wars. And I find it so funny. It's like, what if they don't though? And like, they're sullied with this name you gave them of like, and obviously we have Al in our book who does not want to necessarily be associated with Alethea, who is the female character in our story that they were named after. And again, we see that actually come to a head pretty quickly. So it's been, as I said, from our side, like it's been really fantastic fuel to engage with what I think is an important discussion, but not shy away from it or use it as just like part of the reason we didn't want to put it in the initial marketing is I didn't want people to think it was just like a culture war book or something that we're just doing for attention. Like it is the reason the book exists. Like this is what we are chasing. Like this is what we aren't answering, but where we're going. And ultimately, when we hopefully get to the end of our story long from now, we'll realize and provide a viewpoint on. And obviously, it's going to be a lot more constructive than just like, hey, like go rip up your copies of Sandman or anything like that.
Totally. This conversation is so, and I guess the series as well is very serendipitous to this exact sort of internal struggle that I've been having, not only with the Harry Potter, because I'm 34, I am literally the age of Harry Potter and his friends.
Yeah.
And a little peek behind the curtain, I guess, is that, the week before this, my partner, Olivia, and I were just in Orlando, and we had a chance to go to Universal and see this world that for a long time was so special to me, but it's almost impossible to go to something like that or watch the movies or do anything Harry Potter related and still not think about J.K. Rowling and what she sort of represents in today's world. Because she just still has so much ownership of those characters in that world. And like even the new show that's coming out through HBO is totally under her belt, and people are just sort of looking the other way. They're either like calling it out constantly or they're looking the other way. And another example of this for me, and I'm sure you guys have plenty of examples, but this really hits home for me is like when I was a kid, Kanye West's Graduation was my all-time favorite album.
Okay.
And he was very, very
Kanye
important
was
to me.
a big one, yeah.
Totally. Like I think for a lot of us up to about, for me, it was probably like 808 and Heartbreaks was around the time where I stopped loving Kanye as much. But like there is a early period of Kanye and his work that was so revolutionary and spoke not only to like me as a person, but just like a genre that I loved of hip hop.
Yeah.
And sort of to see what he's, I want to say morphed, but I don't think that's the correct word. Maybe like digressed into, because he is clearly someone who is, mentally
he's
unwell, I guess is probably the best way to say it. And I feel for him in that sense, but at the same time, he's saying and doing horrible things. This is my long-winded way of basically saying that I am of two minds of this exact conversation. And like you guys said, it was really refreshing to hear you say that you're not trying to give anyone answers. You're literally just trying to have the conversation, noodle on the idea. Everybody can come up with their own sort of hypothesis about what the correct route is for how do you love a thing that's created by a monster, right? Like that is a very interesting maze.
Because like you said, like it's also just something that like everybody's dealing with, including Frank and I, and we, we're not going to be the kind of people where it's like we have the answer. Like we're comic creators, man. we
wagging
don't,
a finger at you too and make you feel bad for you. Because again, Harry Potter is like that monolith that like everyone is engaged with it. And I know obviously many people get frustrated on all sides of this, but like that is why I'm saying like I just find it so fascinating that we haven't been grappling with it in our fiction as much. And I don't think it's because anyone's afraid, but like I know it is a touchy subject because you don't want to alienate people. You don't want to not be constructive at the same time, like be so glad handy with it that the book is toothless or says nothing. And that's why I said like really it's been a process. Because I think when people point to the original Death of the Author, like, well, I think Lindsay Ellis had some great video essays about it. Like she just has a straight up Death of the Author one, and then in real time reactions to the Harry Potter stuff, as well as there's a great ContraPoints video about
I love
J.K. Rowling. I feel like it's nice. It's not necessarily about her. It goes more into like the history of like women's rights and just like where TERFs even come from. And then also there's a great YouTuber named Sean who just SHUN, and he has a brilliant video essay about problematic stuff in Harry Potter. Like if you still want to like Harry Potter, don't listen to this because he really gets in there and did his research. But there's a lot of dimensionality here. And that's the big thing for me of saying like that we want to do a book about this. But also, again, it is also a fun like fantasy book. It is something to be exciting and engaging. And I don't want people to be turned off by knowing that's in here. But I think we've threaded the needle because this is why I laughed. The response to issue 1 has been great. And there have been some people who sent us some very heartfelt letters. They're like, hey, I'm glad you're talking about a lot of this. Like, and there's representation in the book and that this exists because I want this to. And that's the most validating stuff, I feel like, for us to know, like, hey, people are excited. But also, I'm a huge nerd. Like, I love the Lock and Key. I love, I said Lock and Key. It sounded like I said the Lock and Key, like a grandfather. The Lock and Key, that one. That was a huge influence on me. Obviously, Saga is a huge influence on me. Monstrous and like, and really the unwritten. And I want to tell this story with Morgan that is very much a love letter to those early 2000s Vertigo books that had big long runs. And
I felt that. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for, yes. Honestly, with the design by Sasha is, I think exactly that, right?
Mm-hmm. All of us, I think our whole team has like a deep love of early Vertigo that we were trying to channel in. But also as Frank was saying, I think also just to highlight, the death of the author and kind of dealing with that is kind of like an overarching meta story of our book, but also like it's not the only story, right? You also have like a lot of struggle of just like interpersonal connections, which is one of my favorite parts of the story. Of like Frank did such a good job of writing characters who feel really real, like they have issues and they're messy and they're not perfect. Especially like Hector, one of our main characters, who's the father of Al, who is just kind of like the typical sort of like shitty sad dad, but like in such a like I don't know, Frank, you did such a good way of writing him that like I love him. Like I don't dislike him as a character, even though he is a deeply flawed man. But also he's not doing a good job, but he is doing his best.
Hashtag trying his best. Yeah, it's like
he really is
with his limited experience.
Well, but you can tell that like part of this book we gets into is that he's made so many mistakes. He's a truly messy guy. He has, you get into his own life outside of being a parent and whatever, and the things he feels like he's failed at and his insecurities. But kind of the through line through it all is just how much he does love his kid. Is that even though he hasn't been the best father and they haven't gotten along all the time, like, Al is the most important thing to him, which is just like a really important, I feel like, through line of that book. And on top of that, you have like the fantasy elements and different identity things, but like it's a pretty big mixed bag. So just in case anybody's like, man, I don't want to read a book that's intensely sociopolitical or whatever. It's an overarching thing. There's a lot more like internal story happening there too.
And it's also so important to us that we are also telling this from Al's point of view as well. Like issue 1 obviously leaned a lot more into Hector as a viewpoint character, but Al is a protagonist as well. Like we will get their take on it because it was so important that we weren't just like also immediately redeeming Hector, like showing this character who's flawed, and then by issue 4 be like, and he's fixed now. Like, no. And the same with Al, like they're not right about anything. They're a kid. They don't fucking know how the world works. Like, so it's what I love about ongoings as well. We have room to kind of show these people, show their dimensionality. And like, again, Morgan has done such a beautiful job of like rendering these characters with acting and just like making them feel real, because honestly, like comics, like I love comics so much, but like, if you write a character-centric story and the art like doesn't have enough acting, it can be so dead on the page. Also, huge just plug for Haas, who just does beautiful lettering that really like I compare it to because I also work in video games, and the number one people love to say, like, well, what did you learn from video games that you bring over? Like, first thing is having an editor. That's having anyone else other than me to give me feedback is very useful. But two, just with character voice, just knowing like when I work with voice actors, like that they can say hello like 50,000 different ways. And it's much harder with the written word, but I think that's one thing that Haas really adds. Like he knows what to emphasize. He does great design on the page. So not only with Morgan's fantastic acting, with the physicality of the characters of the story, we also get that extra +1 of the lettering. And again, I'm just like on cloud 9 as I feel like it's the most like emotionally resonant thing that I've ever achieved because the team is delivering. So it's nice to have that support and know that if we want to do a quiet scene, we can do it. If we want to do a loud scene, we can do it. And Morgan just sent me stuff with blood in it. And I'm just like, oh, damn, look at this.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of blood in issue
and it was red blood. I was like, I was curious if it was going to be like green, but I'm like, oh, no, I like that it's red blood because it feels scary in a way. But yeah, so again, obviously we're riding a lot of different genre influences and character influences, but again, I'm sorry, Morgan, were you gonna say something that I did?
Oh no, I was just further gonna gas up Haas. Haas and Sasha, like
we could sit here and talk about Hassan all day.
Oh my god, so
the guy should have like 7 Eisners by now, I think.
Yeah, God, that's truly a tragedy. But just the fact that like I work traditionally with watercolor, and I think a lot of times, especially when you then go on and put digital things on top of that, it can look very much like you put something digitally on top of that. It doesn't quite integrate. And Haas is like god tier at that. He bless him, he's lettered so much of my stuff. He's probably sticking pins in my doll, but he does such a good job. Like it integrates so seamlessly. And if you read the issues and they have like beautiful like sound effects that look like in kind of a washi style, that's all Haas. I didn't do that. But also the same thing with Sasha, who's our designer, like really has done a good job of like seamlessly kind of integrating beautiful design elements into the watercolor style.
And as Morgan said, it was especially striking to me in print how well Haas's lettering looks like it's part of the art, because I have lettered most of my own books, so I can dunk on myself. It like when I do it and it looks bad, it just looks like stickers or like just. And I learned to do it because I was poor and I wanted to just get something out. But so really, I have an extra layer of appreciation because actually the pitch for the book I lettered, and it's the opening pages we see, and like Haas did those beautiful like handwritten like captions. I like couldn't figure out where to put London on our pitch. I had to look at it the other day.
It's hard.
I had to look at it the other day, Morgan. It looked so bad with my lettering. I was like, oh, bless Morgan for even like considering this. But no, he really just, it's one of those things that coming into this project, and again, also being at Image, where Image, like the creators really do control like every element of the book, which I'm sure many people bring up. Like we decide what's on every page, we do all our own book design, and everything is us. And for me, this was a project where I'm like, okay, well, if we're going to go for it, like I don't want to cut any corners and just be like, I'll make the logo or anything crappy like that just to save. Because this was, again, a book that I'm like, I'm not trying to do 10 other books right now. This is the book I'm doing. It's not a tryout for Marvel or DC or anything like that. Like I want to do this book on Image for hopefully a very long time. And that's where my brain has been after not being around in comics for about 5 years as like a single creator. I've co-written a bunch of stuff, which was very fun, but I knew coming back, I don't want to be over dramatic and say like, oh, my bucket list book. But I tell Morgan this all the time, so she won't cringe too hard. But I'm like, oh no, this is the one book that I really always want to make, and I'm so glad that it looks like this. So,
as someone who's been able to read the first 2 issues, I think that I texted my co-host who's not here with us tonight, Aaron, and I said, this is an extremely digestible book. It's a very digestible genre book about a very, and I said serious topic, but serious isn't the correct. Important, I think, is probably a better way to say it, as we've already talked about sort of this idea of like corruption of our fantasy world. And I want to get into that. You've said it a couple of times, Frank, and I want to noodle on that here in just a moment about sort of the ongoing creator-owned style. We talked to Todd McFarlane a couple of weeks ago here on the show, and he was very, very. You guys ever heard of him? You know Todd, right?
I don't. I think a friend mentioned him.
He's a small indie creator, Morgan. I'll get you on him later.
Making his way. He's making his way. Yeah.
He's gonna make it.
He's gonna be fine. I'll tell you that. But he mentioned this in the conversation. He said like there are like there's very few creators out there that actually strive to make their creator-owned ongoing. They do, 8 to 12 issues, sometimes more, sometimes less. At the most of the time, 30 issues, right? He says this as someone who's made it and has been writing Spawn since before I was born. But for most creators, I empathize with, because, having the dreams of doing a career-owned book, if that's your only book, it can be a pipe dream for some folks. Like, it's not everything is Spawn in the 90s, right? So, I mean that respectfully, of course, but like, point being is that he had this idea of like the ongoing creator. I'm just curious, like you've said this, Frank and Morgan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too. I guess here's a two-parter. If you had to just sort of we're at the very beginning of the story. If you had to put just sort of a random number on how many issues you want to tell of the author immortal, what would it be? And then also at the same time, if you can, how would you convince Morgan to go along this journey with you? If it's going to be a long time.
I say 60, because 60 is like that like pocket for me of like, oh, like that's like, again, Why the Last Man, Ex Machina, Scalped, Unwritten, like everything. It is very ambitious. Like that is our goal though. And when we sat down to make this book, I'm like, I'm not going to compromise and pretend we can't get there, because again, one of my dear friends is W. Maxwell Prince, who's, I talk about this everywhere. Just now it sounds like I'm like trying to like name drop, but he was my roommate in college. So like
Mr. Ice Cream Man.
Yeah. So I've known him forever and seen him, like he saw me break in and then he finally broke in. And we've seen each other's most embarrassing comic works when we were pitching when we were in college. So, but Ice Cream Man is like rounding out 50, like it, like W, will not say his real name as he does not use it. Didn't have like crazy Marvel work, didn't have a name, like, and people just found the book, and that's immensely inspiring to me, and I hope everyone, because like one of the biggest regrets I have is that we stopped doing Five Ghosts. But what it was going to get to is the reality is the business has always been rough, even when we were in like a giant balloon, and books literally do hit natural attrition points where it's very hard for the single issues to make money. And if you're lucky, the trades are making money. Like, I think a lot of people obfuscate this, and I'm not going to go deep into comics business, which I've been very fascinated for my whole career because it's so important. But and this is where I take like the smallest issue with what Todd says, as I think what he's saying is hugely correct and people should be aspiring to that. But with the reality is like, dude, you made like $1 billion off your issue 1 and had like a reservoir, like, and I'm not shy about this. Like, I have to take out loans to do my books at age, like that I pay for up front and gamble on myself that I hope we will get back. And I do it because I care. And I'm thankfully in enough of a position where I can do it, like as my credit score falls. But that's the number one thing we have to fight. But coming into the Author Immortal, like I knew we want to do this. I knew I want to shoot for a longer series with Morgan. So again, I've built safety nets where we can. And that's why I'm not shy about saying it. Is there a chance the book does not make it to 60? Absolutely. We can't control everything. But like, again, right now, it's funny because issue 2 is not even out, and Morgan does this. We talk all the time. I'm like hypercritical about every single little thing of like, oh my God, like I'm trying to like project so we can get to, but knowing that, like, and knowing what I can do, because it's no one's fault. Like, it's not that like, if more people were reading comic books, like I think everyone would be excited, but truly, like it's just there aren't enough readers. The books don't cost the right amount of money, quite frankly. Like they should be like $20 to actually get everyone fed on the book. Let's be real. But I'm also not shy. Like I have a day job. I work in video games. I'm not just trying to draw my paycheck from the book, because that's where we fell apart with Five Ghosts. We made it to 17, but our monthly issues had dropped very low. So like we were making no money for most of it, but 3 people needed to live off of that book. And like, so we were all just mad all the time. Everyone was broke, and like, there was just no world where we could do it. And again, that is the one regret I have in my career. I wish I had like dug deep and like found a way to keep it going, because we'd be on like issue 80 by now. But Morgan, I'm sure you want to speak to this as well, because it's just the reality of the market. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that, because that was also the I listened to your episode with what Todd has said. I know so many creators who want to do an ongoing series. Like, I don't think it's like creators don't.
Right?
Yeah, it's not an ambition, but as Frank said, unfortunately, especially in the creator-owned field, it's just a numbers game. And, you know, comics is pretty niche, and there's not a ton of people reading, and, you know, people are nervous and people are broke right now, and it's just kind of what happens. And so it's hard to keep a thing going. And kind of like how Frank touched on, I think most people realize, but I think there's some people who read comics who just don't understand like how much work and like how much time goes into making a comic. You know, that like if I'm going to get, especially in full color, an issue out a month, I am working on that. I mean, that is my full-time job. And by that, I mean, like, it's fine because I love my job and it's chill or whatever, but like I work 60-hour weeks.
Yeah, still inhuman.
And it's just, like,
Morgan is one of the hardest working people I've ever met. So
I don't know about that, but it's a passion. Like, and so it's fine. I love my job. I have no qualms about that. But there's no wiggle room there to get like a part-time gig or something to get through it.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes to get an issue out every month. And that's not even, again, so that's just me working full-time. I have to make rent and groceries and whatever. But, it's also Frank, it's also Haas, it's also Sasha, it's any cover, variant covers we do, or any fill-in issues, or, Arden, our editor. Like, again, everybody is putting their time into this. It's everybody's job. And so, like Frank said, everybody's got to eat. And it's hard. So either if you're a big hit, it can go really well. But even if you're just kind of a middling success, sometimes for that ongoing money, it can just be a little hard. And especially, I think, when like comic shops get a little nervous, some of that just has to do with like economic climate, political climate, anything, then they order conservatively, and the pre-orders really affect a series longevity. And so that's a little hard. But I just feel like recently a lot of articles have come out that are like, people only want to do 5-issue series, and you're like, well, no,
no,
people really want to do longer, but it's like, it's just a math game, unfortunately.
And I think people would be shocked to know like how many 5-issue miniseries were on like greenlit as ongoings at all publishers. Like, again, I'm not gonna get too crazy on it, but like no one wants their book to end early, and it's just like such a rough numbers game. And the one thing, and again, I really need to like. So I was talking to David Harper about this as well, as he's always interested in the space. And I know he's doing a piece soon about the current market and how it really is for creators. Because people also love to point out and be like, it's going great. It's like, yeah, if you're Batman, like, and again, I think that success does have some trickle down to everyone else, but
which is crazy because we're like living in the best, like this is the best comics has ever been, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't want to cut you off there, Frank, but like this is like the best comics have ever been. And like you said, if you're not writing Batman or Spider-Man, it's like, gosh, this stinks.
And as I said, it's awesome, and I'm glad to have people in the store, people being excited, and I think a lot of more artful, exciting comics, even in the big two. Like, I think they're taking risks that I would have thought they never would, which is awesome. But there is like a huge like barrier, because people are like, well, if people go in and buy Absolute Batman, they're going to buy your book. I'm like, there is 100 steps to get someone who's reading Absolute Batman to get to us.
And again, groceries are getting more expensive, insurance is getting more expensive. People just don't have disposable income, so it's like they're going to have to choose between the Batman book and the creator-owned one. They can't maybe afford to buy both, and like that is just kind of what it is.
And yeah, and that's why I say it's blameless, because it's easy to sound like woe is me, but like I get it too. That's why I'm like, oh, we are trying to find people our book directly does appeal to. And again, I'm so thankful to comic book stores that actually hand sell and really do recommend, because again, we've had some who've really helped move our book, which is fantastic. But I think also the it sounds, I don't mean to sound mean, but the fantasy of people just discovering your book on the rack is so hard right now, because effectively your book is on the rack, the front rack, for 1 week.
Yeah.
And like, even if I'm a monthly comic book store,
with hundreds of other books.
And even if I'm a monthly comic book goer, like, oh gosh, am I going to be on the rack the 1 week that person I think might want my book is there before it gets moved to the back shelves? And again, bless any store that keeps us on any shelf, but discoverability is just so difficult. And again, I think a lot of creators have been smart with what they're using, like, and we're trying to get on like different TikTok and other places, but like there's no easy way, and it's a problem everyone deals with. So that's why I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, no one buys my comics, but like, and everyone struggles because like, again, I'm someone who wants more good creator-owned work, and I think we're seeing it, but like, it bums me out that there's like, I don't want to be so pessimistic, say not enough customers to support it all, but I just don't think there's enough discovery methods right now, which is why I'm so thankful that there are great websites out here that are covering tons of books. And as I said, I just don't begrudge anybody, because I know if I'm also a website owner, if I write an article about Batman, it's going to get X amount of clicks, versus if I'm going to run a review of indie book no one's ever heard of, it might just sit there. And I spend a lot of time trying to square that circle of like, hey, how can we do meaningful promotion? Because it's all just about getting our material to the people who I want it to resonate with, but I'd like to be surprised too, because maybe there are people who I did not think would like our book and would. So I don't know where this thought ended up, but anyway, it is it's hard to do creator-owned books, but we at least,
especially ongoing series. Yeah.
And everyone does want to do them, but like it is why we at least came in with a plan. And as I said, our plan is not bulletproof. Like there's a lot of variables, but I at least am not shy about saying like, well, this is the intent. Like we talked about it. Like, and
we're hoping for 60. Yeah.
Yeah. Is where.
Well, here's the thing. I have a plan. I have a plan for this episode to get the author immortal in more ear holes and eyeballs. I'm just going to say creative team of author immortal says book is better than Absolute Batman, and just see what the clicks do after that.
I'm into it.
We'll just we'll run with it, and people can listen. I think that'll at least get people listening and talking, right?
I'm sure Scott will.
Yeah, rage bait him. Rage bait him.
I loving this book. Right?
Like what the hell are you saying?
Frank, you mentioned this a moment ago. You said somebody mentioned that people who go in and get Absolute Batman, or maybe they'll pick up the author immortal. I want to meet the person who has Absolute Batman and Author Immortal on their pull list. That's the only two books they have.
If that's you, comment
I feel
below.
like I saw a lot of people. I mean, at least like with issue 1, giving it a shot because, as I said, I don't mean to just target Absolute Batman. Obviously, I think it is one of the most popular books, of course. But like,
it's doing great.
And it is the kind of thing where I knew also with our book, like it would be tricky, especially when we're using the Unwritten as a comp. Like everyone's like, "Yo, man, the Unwritten is not a great comp. No one knows what that book is." And I'm like, "Well, they damn well should." But it is the kind of thing where it gets very tricky to just like. As I said, we didn't want to give our whole book away in the solicit, but it's been really rewarding to see people read it and discover like, oh, there's so much more here than I thought. And again, or if they're just not familiar with Morgan's work, be like, oh my gosh, now we'll go buy everything that Morgan does. It was nice that the Twilight Zone issue came out the week before our issue 1 came out too. So it was a good time to be good time to be a Morgan Beem fan in comic books.
That's right.
It's funny, Frank, that you mentioned the Unwritten. People telling you not to comp that. Just side story, but there is this really great comic that's called This Was Our Pact. It's like an all ages sort of adventure comic. And everybody in my studio read it. We all became obsessed with it. And so a lot of my studio, like writer drawers and work kind of on the graphic novel side. And so they were sending pitches in for like middle reader books or whatever. And the comp was always like, oh, this is a story kind of like This Is Our Pact. And finally, our friend who was an editor had to sit us down and an editor at one of the kind of major like book publications and be like, yo, stop putting that in the pitch. That book did not sell. And we were like,
no one knows what that is.
Yeah. And I was like so upset because this book was so good. And she's like, it flopped. Stop putting that I don't know the creator, but I all the time I just want to like send him like a DM or whatever on Instagram that's like, you were robbed. But anyway, that's
also the tricky part of like when I was using Saga as a comp, because again, Brian Givon is my favorite writer. Like full stop. Like, yeah, I know. I loved your interview with him recently too. So good getting on that. But like,
thank you for name dropping for me. I appreciate that.
No, it was a great interview. If you have not listened to it, people should go listen. But I feel like what he did with Saga that's so special is like, people would probably argue with me, but like, it is written to be enjoyed every issue. Like every issue kind of starts with a cold open. Like rarely do we start on the exact same scene where we ended in the last issue. And like a issue of Saga feels like a good, like, I hate comping to TV, but like a good episode of TV, and he's really mastered the medium.
He says it's like sort of every arc of Saga is basically a season of TV, as he says.
And that's what we want to do with The Author Immortal. Like, I want it to be a book you want to read monthly because you just love it so much. And the thing I constantly say, and they made fun of me on Comic Book Club, so I need to reiterate or rephrase. But like when I was reading like the books I really loved, like, and when I have books I really like in the comic book store, I want to read them like in the parking lot, in the car. I said in the car, and they're like, while driving. I'm like, God damn it. No, I meant in the parking lot. Like, that is my like goofy aspiration. Like, I want you to like our book so much you want to read it as soon as it comes out. I remember I worked at Comixology when Saga was first coming out, and we would get the PDFs to like convert to digital files like a week early, and like the whole office would be like, Saga's here, and everyone would just shut up and go read the PDF. But no, and I think that is the kind of thing of like, I don't begrudge anyone for like writing for the trade, so to speak. And I think a lot of fans like to just get trades, but like it has been very top of mind for us. And again, this is something that I think to put Absolute Batman in a positive light, because again, I think Scott and Nick are insanely talented people, but Scott is so smart and constantly reinventing himself. And he had said like every issue we want like a showstopper moment in the comic that people are going to talk about. And that's not cynical. That is just smart. They're writing for the issue. They're thinking about the unit as a piece. And I think we all need to be doing that more. And that's really been our intent. And it's why we have backups now. Like starting in issue 2, we have backups by Kate Case now and Lauren Affey that we come up with the story for, because we want to make use of every single page. Like we want the issues to feel substantial. Why we will, again, pay a designer, very talented designer, Sasha, to make our books look cool as physical objects, because we want people to feel good about picking up single issues and not just in the game when there's a comic book in the trash. But like, it's why we take the care to do that, because we think it's important. And that's why I love comics. Like I love this medium. Like I clearly don't do it to get rich. So, but like, I think it is a really rewarding serialized form. And I love the idea. And I just love comic book stores still being one of the only places where physical media is so prevalent. Like it's still that old record store mentality. You walk in and you're immersed with tons of books everywhere. And I love that feeling. So that's why I like being a part of it. So
totally. And I always tell people that the single issue comic is my favorite art object of all time. It's this little 22 to 32 page artifact of, Morgan, you spoke on this earlier, of these 6 to 8 wildly talented people being paid way too little to do this incredible thing 8 times a year, just on that particular series, 8 to 10 times a year, whatever it is, whatever it might be. It's crazy to just to hold a single issue. It could be a big 2 book. It could be a dark horse book. It could be all of it. It blows my mind every time. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to go on a tangent here, because I want to go back a little bit. This will probably be my final question for you guys here, because I want to give you a moment to sort of brag on Morgan here. I think I did the same thing to Matthew when we talked to you both about crashing, Morgan. But I want to set up Frank here because, speaking of Brian, when we had him on the show, I couldn't get him to stop bragging about Fiona with Saga. And he mentioned something in that conversation that I think Morgan does extremely well as well, which is the character acting in the story. I think that's one of the true, the hallmark sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a good way to just showcase what this book is doing really well. You could, and this isn't like a slight on you, Frank, at all, but you could show someone.
How dare you?
You can show someone a random page of the author immortal and just see the expression on the characters' faces. I think that could kind of sell it within itself. So, Frank, let me ask you here. Outside of the acting, I think that's pretty apparent. We've showcased that here with Morgan and what she does really well. Is there something else, or maybe a couple other things? You don't have to like name off a bunch of things, but is there anything that comes to mind immediately that Morgan does extremely well that sort of just reaffirms the partnership and makes you glad that you chose her as your partner, or your guys' partnership together?
Character design and creature design. I feel like, Morgan, you remember this, but Morgan had came off a wonderful book called You Belong Here with Sarah Miller that is a kind of YA story in a school. And Morgan was like...
For a second?
Was it? It was for a second.
For a second. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Available now. Great book. But Morgan was like, "Holy shit! I really want to draw some crazy monsters." And I was like, "Okay, we got you." Like, and one interesting thing a lot of people don't know, going back to just like monthly comics, is we don't have like pre-production windows. So I'm not like, "Okay, Morgan, we're gonna do some character designs for the first season of the book. Let's think about what these creatures." It's by the month. And I even said, because we were taking our time, I was like, "Morgan, do you want some time to possibly do creature designs?" They're like, "No, just let me do it." And as a writer, like, again, I love the craft of writing, but comics is an art show. Like, it is a visual medium. If the book does not look cool, good luck. Like, and it's so funny. And I've said this a few times, like when I write full script, but like when I do character and creature descriptions, like I'm pretty loose. Like with the ink creatures in the first thing, I'm like, ink angels, what does that look like? And Morgan went nuts with that. But like, even like with the wizard character, the Great Wizard, like super generic name, he's meant to just be kind of like Gandalf replacement. In my mind, I just saw shitty Gandalf. And like, I was so glad when Morgan went in there and designed the hell out of him. He looks unique. And just the fantasy world in general, I was like, let's make it look unique. And like, yeah, maybe some writers will get in there and describe brick by brick, but that's all Morgan just doing design work on the fly. And we certainly did not invent the portal fantasy. And the number one thing I don't like is if people describe my work as generic. And like, I feel like we found such unique, cool specificity in this world. And that's all Morgan's design work. And again, it's on the fly. Artists have to do this all the time. I always remember in Five Ghosts, I'm like, there's a crazy airship that looks like nothing we've ever seen before. And just like, good luck, artists. Like, have fun. Like, and Chris did a great job. But like, yeah. But no. So, but truly, like, again, Morgan is a generational talent, I say. So good job, Morgan. You did
Frank.
it. And it's a joy because, again, it's what I love about comics and collaborating with many different artists, because you never know exactly what the book is going to look like, and that scares some people, but that's what I love about it. I love working with different people, getting to know their style and sensibility, and writing towards that, because the only thing that you can ever truly mess up is if you are kind of writing against an artist's strengths, and that just does everyone a disservice. So
yeah, I think you've just sort of keyed on like the number one thing most seasoned writers will comment on is like, you have to write to your artist's strengths, find out what they're excited about and put that in the story, because that is what they will bring the energy for. And I'm not saying that, Morgan, you can't draw things you're not excited about. I'm sure you have. But like, if you can key in on that, I'm sure it really makes things fun for both of you, because not only do you get to make something you really enjoy, but it makes the story that much cooler. So, gosh, it's been so much fun talking to both you guys here about The Author Immortal. I really appreciate you both being here. I do want to sort of end on one final sort of random question, I guess. I asked you guys to sort of come up with this at the beginning of the conversation. We like to ask our creator friends what's something they're enjoying recently, and that could be, another comic. It could be an album. It could be a podcast. It could be just a song. It could be whatever, another book, a television series, whatever. So Morgan, I'd love to start with you here. If you could, what's something that you've just been really enjoying that you want to sort of put on the listeners' radar?
Yeah, I'll talk about two things. The first one being comic related, since that's where we're at. But I just picked up not when it came out, so it was last month, was Roots of Madness, which is an issue 1 from Ignition Press. It's a newer publisher, and it's written by Stephanie Williams, whose work I've liked for a long time. But it was such a great, like, just kind of creepy, folkloric, interesting issue. And I feel like Stephanie's work a lot of times has been known for like her comedy and kind of like goofy lightheartedness that she does really well. So it's been really interesting to see her kind of step into this more serious space. And the artwork on it is stunning too. I'm going to probably butcher the name, but it's drawn by Letizia Caronisi. Very sorry if I screwed that up. But she, I believe she's done a lot of work for the House of Slaughter too.
Oh, nice.
But her artwork is phenomenal. So I really enjoyed that first issue, and the second issue is out with our second issue tomorrow, I believe. So I will be picking that up. And the other thing I've been really loving is a Japanese band called Creepy Nuts.
Oh, they did the Dan to Dan opening, right?
Yeah, they did the Dan to Dan opening. Yeah. They're just like this like weird high octane music that sometimes I joke all the time when I'm coming home. It takes me a while to get out of like work mode, which, you spend like most of the day working like with your headphones on and sort of deeply introspective. And so like it takes me a minute to like shake that off and be like sociable again or whatever. But I'll listen to this band, Creepy Nuts. In particular, they have a song that's called Bling Bang Bong. And when you put on, it's just like this, like, I don't know, just like kind of high dopamine music that really helps me sort of get more in a fun headspace. So check it out.
I want them to solicit themselves as high dopamine music.
It's funny to hear you say that, because I recently have been getting into like Japanese. This is like 1970s Japanese like rock pop, like electric.
Fun.
It's like, well, and here's the artist. You guys probably already know who this is. I'm probably going to sound like a dumb American by saying this, but
dude, I'd sound like the most like New Jersey person on earth when I say anything in Japanese. So don't worry, I feel you.
Bear with me. It's Masayoshi Takanaka.
Oh yeah, so like city pop.
Pop. Yeah.
Yes. It's like, I feel like I should be like playing. I should be playing like Mega Man while I'm listening to this music. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been listening to. Similar to you, Morgan, where like I'll be like long day at work, and just throw on something to just sort of decompress and just sort of lose whatever you were messing with earlier in the day. But
if you're looking for something quick, because I listened to, I have a vinyl version of it that some company put out. The Hideo Kojima, one of his first games is a game called Snatcher. That is a graphic adventure. It's my favorite game of all time. Quick plug, me and David Brothers wrote essays about it in a new issue of My Friend's magazine.
Oh, I love
that's coming out. Yeah, but the soundtrack is all city pop, and it's like there's like a saxophone on one song and stuff. It's so good. So look up the Snatcher OST for a good time. But
I'll look that up. Yeah.
But I will. I'm going to say comics wise, I finally got a copy of Drone from Jesse Lonergan at New York Comic Con and finally read it. Fucking awesome, like everyone had said. Beautiful, beautiful book. I recommend everyone gets it. It came out on 23rd Street, which is the kind of like more adult focused for Second Line, which I'm really interested in that they've kind of broken in two paths like that, which is very cool to see. But beautiful book, beautiful edition. And Then if you like video games, there's a awesome magazine that is funded through Kickstarter called A Profound Waste of Time. That is basically a zine from a lot of different just cool journalists and people in games, but they go insanely crazy on the graphic design and just like physicality of the magazine, and like there's little inserts, like beautiful art, and just like over designed in the best way. So like a really indulgent print object. And I think issue 6 is funding now, but the 5 issues that have come out are so cool and beautiful.
Oh, that sounds cool, yeah.
It's on really good paper.
That's a really that's a super niche thing that I'm gonna look it up as soon as we get off here.
Oh,
Frank.
dude,
You really keyed in on something I just absolutely love.
Yeah,
we have like a comic version of that called the Comic Courier. It's being created by Tiffany Babb. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
No, I don't have one, but I've seen people tweeting about it. It looks awesome because it's on newspaper, right? Like they actually print it on.
It's literally a newspaper about comics journalism. It's incredible. But my gosh, Frank, Morgan, what a pleasure, as I said a moment ago. So great to talk to you both here. Would love to get you back on to talk about the Author Immortal, like maybe at the end of this arc or maybe after a couple arcs, whatever.
Yeah, please. Like it's a
we'd love that. Yeah.
And again, I know I just like talked a ton, but I was like, oh, the time flew by. Like I could talk all day. Maybe I'm the most long-winded man, but no. Again, it's been a joy. Big fans of the podcast, and like I said, it's great to be able to talk about this book in a little more of a conversation because there's a lot going on with it. And again, we hope people enjoy it. We're fans. Well, I can't speak for everyone.
Yeah, it's cool. Buy our book. Yeah.
I'm into it.
No, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris.
I need to get with someone an image and just get the pull quote. Chris Hacker, The Oblivion Bar. This book is cool, right? That's it. That's all you need to say. That's it. We're Chris, that's the end of it.
Chris, I can make you a verbal contract right now. I will put that on the back of the Author Immortal if you want.
Listen,
we have the control
right
of
that. Virtually.
Yeah,
Here, right here. This book is cool.
Listen, look for the trade in March or April. I can't remember. I think it's March, but I will definitely pull quote you on that. You are the first one in.
Yes. Well, I do want to quickly reiterate to all the listeners here. First issue, as we said, currently in stores. You can probably find it right now, unless they're completely sold out, which actually first issue was sold out at my local comic book shop, just so you guys are aware. So people are loving this book.
I think there's a few left. I'm hoping we go to a reprint because I know like as of a few weeks ago, like there weren't a ton left at Lunar, and the variants are definitely out. But again, so please move with speed if you want to grab those.
Make haste for that first issue. And then that second issue comes out, again, as we said, November 12th, which at the time of this recording, hopefully the issue already be out. So this conversation, you guys can listen to it.
And really quick, I just want to plug, we have a beautiful variant from Rye Hickman, who did a really haunting, great variant. And then a young...
Who's my studio mate who just grabbed the bike, actually.
And a Youngblood variant, of all things, by Jim Toe, who drew Youngblood, which we're so glad to get Jim, and JP Jordan colored it. And it's a really cool variant. And Sasha did a like faux Youngblood logo and everything. It's a real fun variant. And there were very few of those printed, I will say. So it should also just be a cover price variant too. It's not anything expensive.
I love that Image is doing that. The sort of callback to the 90s stuff. Like that was a little bit before my time, but I get that aesthetic and love it. So it's cool they're doing that. And I'm gonna go ahead before I get you guys out of here. I'm gonna hand it off to you one last time. And Morgan, I'll start with you here. Is there anything that I missed? Anything you want to plug? How can people follow you in your career? All those good things.
Oh, yeah. So you can follow me these days on social media. I'm mostly just on Instagram. So it's just at Morgan Beem, my full name. I also, if you were really into the art of Author Immortal or anything else, I am selling original art through my rep, The Artist Bullpen. That's also linked to my Instagram. Hit me up. Say, hey, tell us you bought the book.
Yeah, I am mainly on Instagram and Blue Sky these days at the tag FJ Barb, which is Frank Joseph Barbiere, the worst username of all time, but it's the one I went with, so here we are.
Nice. And then I think that'll probably do it, but like I said, I would love to get not only you two back on, but Aaron as well, because I know this is something that he would really love, and we'll have to do that. But until then, thank you guys so much again, and we'll talk to you soon.
No, our pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much.